Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice Radio, so today we're going to be taking a look at what's good over in Japan. Now, you see, I show you a lot of Japanese deck lists, and incidentally, I'm going to continue to do so. However, sometimes I get messages from people going, yeah, Ross, but what's actually the best in Japan? Well, recently, they had a 1,500-person tournament, and the lovely Shintaro Ito, yes, that Shintaro Ito, has gone and made a meta cake showing you what the best decks are, although the top 64 can be seen in its entirety over on limitlesstcg.com. I'll pop a link in the description. And the first thing we need to mention here is that although there are a bunch of viable decks, there is one deck which is far and above the best deck, and that is Reshiram and Charizard Tag Team GX. And this isn't a kind of like, well, there's a few decks vying for top spot. No. It is the number one deck. It is 38%, although actually I believe that this meta cake missed one of the top 64 players. It just didn't have the info, and I believe it's actually 39%. Either way, you're talking a ridiculous amount of Reshiram and Charizard. I mean, you can see from the metacake, the next highest deck is 11%. And this is rocking 39%. It is the best deck by a very long way. So I know Unbroken Bonds isn't legal for tournament play yet, but it will be legal for tournament play in a couple of weeks' time. And when it is legal for tournaments play, incidentally, that is the third Friday of the month in which it is released. That's this month. It's Friday the 17th. It will be the best deck. Hands down, no problem. What we've got here is just a really powerful card with good enough support. The 270 HP is high, but other Tag Team GXs have that. The outrage attack is fine, but not spectacular. What we really like here is 4 energy, 230 damage. Because of a choice band, you're up to 260, and that'll get most Pokemon. And then you've got Salazzle, there's a little bit of a draw engine here. And you've got Fire Crystal, which will go and get your cards out the discard pile, your basic fire energy. And then you've got Fiery Flint, which will search it out of your deck. And then, of course, you've got Welder. And Welder will attach 2 fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and then you draw 3 cards. So you can get the energy easily, but it's really Welder that makes this deck tick. Yes, you've still got Kiawe, and that's lovely, and you can use that to get 4 energy on from your deck, but make no mistake about it, it is Welder and Reshiram and Charizard that really makes this amazing. Yeah, you've got other attackers. Sometimes they play it with Flareon GX, which is a very fun little card. And it can be played with a whole bunch of other stuff. You see Reshiram GX in there sometimes. But really, although the deck lists vary, the one thing we see over and over again is that Reshiram and Charizard Tag Team GX is the best deck. And in a 1,500-person tournament, when this is absolutely ruling, I don't think it's even in question at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. It's phenomenal. Now, there are a couple of other decks that come fairly close. The second place deck with 11% of the meta is Giratina and Garchomp Tag Team GX. Now, what I find very interesting about this is that this didn't have any particularly high finishes. Sure, it had a bunch of top cuts, but the highest placing we saw here was 19th place. That was Masataka Hirano. That's it, 19th place. That's not amazing. But it's still 11% of the top cut. It's still a very good deck. Now, it's fine, but really what we're focusing on with Garchomp and Giratina is the main attack, which for a Psychic Fighting Colorless does 160, but if there's any damage counters on, you do 240. Now, unfortunately, none of the deck lists from this giant tournament in Japan have been published, but we know from some earlier decks, some earlier lists were playing Giratina to try and get some energy on. When it comes out to discard, boom, 1 energy on each of 2 bench Pokemon, along with Tapu Koko, which can use Flying Flip to put 2 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. You then, of course, would use Malamar, and essentially you've got Malamar to accelerate 2 Psychic Energy, and then you attach the Fighting from your hand, and of course we've always got Viridian Forest, which can be used to find the Fighting Energy so that you can attach it, and then you're only playing a few Fighting Energy. The 19th place list did actually play Shining Mew, which is kind of cool. It's an horrifically weak Pokemon at 30 HP, bearing in mind Buzzwole and Pheromosa is out in Japan, and that can one-hit KO on the bench in the same way that Buzzwole can. They've got the same attack. But 1 Psychic Energy, which you're playing anyway, search your deck for up to 2 energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. And then, of course, it doesn't matter if you lose 2 Shining Mew, because then if all you've got on the field is Garchomp and Giratina, your opponent's still got to KO 2 of them in order to win the game. Plus, it would open you up to counter, catcher, etc. I don't have the exact list, but I'm going to be doing a video this week to show you exactly how that particular build would work. The more common build seems to be with Malamar and Giratina, but either way, you can do 240 before you bring in stuff like Choice Band, and you've got a lot of HP. It's very similar in that respect to Reshiram and Charizard. It's got high HP and can one-hit KO tag Team GXs. It just doesn't quite have the support that Reshiram and Charizard does, which is why it's not quite as good. And then the only other deck which really impacted the meta, coming in at 10%, was Pikarom. Now, where we are in North America and Europe at the moment, Pikarom is absolutely crushing. We're going to do a video probably tomorrow about the metagame in Europe at the moment. And Pikachu and Zekrom, well, Europe and North America, obviously. Pikachu and Zekrom is the best deck, and it's not even close. They're ruling Europe like Reshiram and Charizard is ruling Japan. But this is just falling off. And the reason essentially is, this struggles to one-hit KO Reshiram and Charizard, whereas with a Choice Band, Reshiram and Charizard one-hit KOs this. Also, Reshiram and Charizard GX attack will get a one-hit KO on this, whereas this will not get a one-hit KO with its GX attack on Reshiram and Charizard. The main attack here, free energy, 150, and attach free energy from your deck to one of your Pokemon. You use Thunder Mountain to reduce the attack cost by 1. You use Tapu Koko, Lost Zone it and put 1 energy from your discard onto 2 of your bench Pokemon. And with a Thunder Mountain in play and having used Tapu Koko, you can now just attach 1 energy from your hand, and then all of a sudden Pikachu and Zekrom is a legitimate turn 1 option, which is awesome. The problem is, it can run out of steam. Now, when it gets the first attack off, it accelerates free energy and it goes, and that's fine. This is a great, great deck. But when you have something that can one-hit KO it fairly easily, that it cannot fairly easily one-hit KO back, it drops away from being best deck in the format. Over in North America and Europe at the moment, the real contenders other than this are stuff like Blacephalon, and Ultra Necrozma, and Zoroark, and Lycanroc, all of which can be one-hit KO'd, especially by the GX attack. That's not the case, unfortunately, with Reshiram and Charizard. Now, those are the top 3 decks, and they are an extremely clear top 3. The other 2 decks that do bear mentioning very, very quickly are Zoroark decks, because Zoroark's as good as it's always been. Sometimes played with Lycanroc so that you're hitting that fighting weakness and you got the gusting effect on the ability, but more often nowadays played with the new Dugong, whereby you can discard 2 energy and do 60 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. You take out their pre-evolutions, and your opponent legitimately just struggles to get evolved up. It's kind of hilarious. And with triple acceleration energy here, it's easier than it's ever been. And the other deck archetype we need to mention very quickly is Hooper. Hooper from Shining Legends is still good. It blocks attacks from EX and GX Pokemon. And you'll notice that all of the top 3 decks I mentioned, plus the Zoroark, really rely on EX and GX Pokemon. So this comes in to go, you know what, boys? I've got this. I'm all right. There's not much that you can do. It's kind of hilarious. And there's a bunch of different ways to play this, whether you play it with Regigigas, just because it's huge, or whether you play it with Shuckle, can be done. We do see a really cool list, which I'm going to show you in the next couple days, played along with the Umbreon from Lost Thunder, but again, we'll talk about that more in the next couple of days. The rest of the meta is just a mishmash. We see unknown hand decks that win if they get 35 cards in hand. Generally nowadays these are played with the new Salazzle, which discard a card from your hand of fire energy, draw 3 cards. That gets you there fairly quickly. We see Zapdos Jirachi decks, little Pokemon. Jirachi for consistency, Zapdos for a little bit of hitting, Electro Power to get up to the numbers that you need. That's still doing pretty gosh darn well. We do still see Gardevoir and Sylveon seeing some love, using Fairy Charms to give yourself immunity while moving your energy around right before you ace Roller, and then using a GX attack to give your opponent a 0-card hand. We see Blacephalon GX Naganadel still hanging on there with a few top cuts. Naganadel to accelerate energy to itself, Blacephalon to pop that energy into the Lost Zone and do a huge amount of damage. Granbull, now I did a video on this the other day, I'll pop a link in the description, but Granbull's actually coming back nowadays, using stuff like bodybuilding dumbbells to turn into a 2-hit KO machine, while not being 1-hit KO'd by that much stuff, while then also doing 160 for a single energy if you've got a 0-card hand. Yeah, Granbull's back and Granbull's still kind of good. And then we also see Baby Blacephalon, hey Nick, which is also seeing a little bit of love at the moment. It's got the same fire tricks as Reshiram and Charizard has, but for free fire energy, you discard as many fire energy from your hand as you like, and you do 50 damage for each one discarded in this way. It's good. I just think it's a weaker version of Reshiram and Charizard with the same support. So I'm not as high on this card as most people, because as much as I love it as a non-GX attacker, it generally doesn't see play in Reshiram and Charizard decks, and the deck itself is just a worse version of Reshiram and Charizard, so I'm not entirely sure why we're getting all excited about it. It's not a bad card by any stretch, but I'm not loving it as much as I'm loving other things. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, a clear 1-2 in Japan, 2 to 3 other decks really worth thinking about, and then a hodgepodge of stuff to build up the remainder. It's fun, and you'll notice that there's an awful lot in here, which is from Unbroken Bonds and beyond, which means that our metagame is about to shake up fantastically. I'm excited, and you should be too. And I'd like to know how excited you are, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWazzy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WazzyPlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.